We just got word of a major shakeup in Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' 2024 presidential campaign. So CBS News has confirmed James Uthmeier is going to replace Generra Peck as the campaign manager. Uthmeier has served in the governor's office as chief of staff. DeSantis' campaign said he is now needed where it matters most. CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns is following this for us from Washington. So, Caitlin, here's my question. This seems to me like, tell me if I'm wrong, this seems to me like we need a new campaign manager. The last one wasn't the best, rather than saying maybe our candidate needs some work.
Yeah, well, this is the third campaign shakeup in less than a month, as we've been covering here at CBS News. Remember, they had two iterations of staff layoffs, laying off nearly a third of staff earlier. And that was because a lot of the money that they had raised was drying up. We didn't see much movement from DeSantis in terms of the polls. And a lot of people started to point their fingers, especially donors, at the campaign management. Now, this is a significant shakeup. Anytime you have a replacing of a campaign manager is a huge deal, of course. What's notable about, well, it's interesting because we're still 6 months out from any voter weighing in. We're still 6 months out from those Iowa caucuses. But the idea that he wasn't gaining traction in the polls, that he raised a lot of money but also spent a lot of money, and so there was this question of what do you have to show for it. You know, this change is significant also because Uthmeier is the now former chief of staff to Ron DeSantis in his governor's office. So that means he's been very close to DeSantis in terms of policy and shepherding a lot of those controversial measures through with DeSantis in Florida. Now, that is something that they are thinking appeals to voters in a Republican primary. But remember, he's also gotten some flack from donors about whether those kinds of policies, particularly on abortion and others, have been a little too aggressive. So that remains to be seen there. But the idea here, too, is that this, you know, when your campaign's going well, you don't change your campaign manager, right? This is the third shakeup, and we'll see whether this changes the dynamic in this race. So
I'll tell you what I noticed is the point that you just brought up, that he's the former chief of staff, not a campaign veteran who's run many successful campaigns. I mean, it feels to me like DeSantis is leaning into someone he knows well and he trusts. But I don't know if this is the kind of shakeup that that would make a difference in his campaign. I'm wondering, have you heard any sort of inside information about just how things are going within the campaign? Are they getting along? You know, that sort of stuff.
Well, his now former campaign manager, Generra Peck, was the one who led his campaign for governor a couple of years ago. Remember, he had huge success, won the state by nearly 20 points. They had, you know, thought that would be kind of the good positioning that he needed in a Republican primary to say, look, I've won. I was kind of the, you know, few moments of silver lining for Republicans in the midterm election. We just really haven't seen that pan out in terms of this primary process so far. And again, it's early, but still, the lines have remained the same. Donald Trump has remained the front runner throughout all of this, and we've actually seen him, you know, coalesce a lot of Republicans around him after some of these indictments. We have seen DeSantis change campaign strategy a little bit over the past couple of weeks. Most notably, I would note, in terms of media interviews. He's actually talking to the media. He's doing gaggles. He's doing interviews. He did an interview with CBS's Ed O'Keefe a couple of weeks ago, for example. So he is putting himself out there. This is all coming ahead of the first debate later this month. And campaign strategists that I've talked to who are supportive of DeSantis and those outside have noted that is going to be a really key moment for him to change the trajectory of this race.
Caitlin, this guy who is coming in was the former chief of staff. This says to me that DeSantis is doubling down on that which he has used, right? So there's this talk of, listen, DeSantis's view of Florida will apply well in a primary. But as he gets to a general election, if he were to ever make it to a general election, it might not as apply. That's just one school of thought. But does this Do you perceive this as well as him doubling down, bringing in a guy from what he's done in Florida and having him run the campaign?
Well, it's a significant, note here. I mean, this is a person that he knows and trusts. The campaign in their statement today noted that he's been a longtime ally of DeSantis.
Yeah.
So that is always, of course, important here. Yeah. But you're right to note in terms of the policy, that's been a question on the campaign trail about whether he should shift to a more, a broader economic message, for example, and whether this idea of what he's been really focused on in Florida, whether that does have broader appeal beyond Florida. And remember, this is a fight at this point for Republican primary and caucus voters. Yep. So that is kind of what you are tailoring your message to. But so far, what they've been doing, hasn't been bearing fruit, and there has been a lot of finger pointing, and we have this today. I should also note that they have brought in an Iowa veteran, David Pilecki, who is a veteran of Ted Cruz, Scott Walker, you may remember, who didn't have a good run in 2016, but someone who is very, very well entrenched in Iowa politics. And we've seen DeSantis he's been spending a lot of time in Iowa, really hoping to make a difference there, pledging to visit all 99 counties and really run a ground game there. I should also note he has a huge super PAC that's raised a ton of money. They've relied a lot on that, and they've been helping him out as well. So we'll see what works here, but this is, again, the third in less than a month in this campaign.
I believe his super PAC has raised more money than Donald Trump's super PAC. We'll see. I think that's right? Am I right, Caitlin?
Well, what's significant is that the super PAC has overhauled a lot of the kind of traditional operations. They're really focused on ground game. They have a bus tour that they invite DeSantis to come on. We've seen that twice in Iowa now, and so it's kind of testing the yes, exactly here. But that is a well-funded operation, a big operation that they hope can make up for some of the troubles that the actual campaign has had.
So, Caitlin, I want to talk to you about the other story that you're following. This is a special election, a vote out of Ohio. A lot of abortion rights activists on both sides of the debate are watching this election closely. What's at stake?
That's right. So Ohio is supposed to be the only state this year to have a constitutional amendment on the ballot this November to change the Constitution to preserve abortion access. That will be, a test case for kind of how potent this issue is in 2024. But in order to get to that point, they have to surmount another additional hurdle, which is that the Republican-led legislature set a special election for today to try to change the threshold to amend the Constitution. Right now, current law in Ohio is 50% plus one vote. You can amend the state constitution. Republicans in the state want to change that threshold to 60%. Why 60%? Well, we see in polling that about 58% of voters in Ohio support amending the Constitution to preserve abortion access. And we've also seen in other states that have been successful in amending their constitutions on abortion have passed referendums with about 57-ish% of the vote. So that 60% is just a little bit higher than that. And so critics have said that this is all strategic. There are questions about, obviously how abortion access is a driving force in American politics, but also questions about what this means for democracy. So a lot at stake here in Ohio that has implications kind of across the country. Other states like Missouri are trying to implement similar measures. If it passes, that's huge for this vote in November. And if it doesn't, that tells us a lot about kind of where the electorate is in a very red state.
Okay, Caitlin, thank you.